Okay, think about the most awkward flirting attempt you've ever witnessed. Maybe it was someone laughing way too hard at a joke that wasn't funny. Maybe it was an overly enthusiastic compliment that landed with all the grace of a falling piano. Maybe it was you. No judgment. Now imagine trying to flirt without words. No texts, no pickup lines, no carefully crafted Instagram story, no accidental likes on a 3-year-old photo. Just your body, your appearance, your actions, and your complete willingness to make a fool of yourself in public. For most animals on Earth, that's reality. And today we're exploring some of the strangest, funniest, and most impressive courtship displays in the animal kingdom. Some are beautiful, some are ridiculous, and some make human dating look surprisingly straightforward. Let's begin. To understand why animals perform these bizarre displays, we need to start with a simple fact. Across the animal kingdom, countless species face the same challenge, successfully passing their genes to the next generation. Finding a mate is one of the most important events in an animal's life. But animals can't simply introduce themselves and list their best quality. They can't say, "Hello, I'm healthy, genetically fit, and likely to produce strong offspring." Instead, they have to demonstrate it. Their health, strength, coordination, energy, and overall quality must be communicated through colors, sounds, dances, gifts, constructions, and displays. Scientists call this process courtship behavior. Most of us would probably just call it flirting. And the variety is astonishing. Some animals use color, some use music, some dance, some bring gifts, some build elaborate structure, and some transform themselves into creatures that barely look real. But how do these displays actually work? How does one animal convince another that it's worth choosing? Let's start with dancing, because apparently for millions of species, the best way to impress someone is to perform an unsolicited talent show. Meet the Peacock Spider. This tiny Australian spider is smaller than your fingernail, but it behaves like it's headlining a sold-out performance. The male possesses a colorful flap on his abdomen that can be raised into a vibrant fan. When he spots a female, the show begins. He waves his legs, he vibrates his body, he shuffles sideways, he performs a highly coordinated sequence of movements that looks surprisingly choreographed. The female watches carefully. If she's impressed, he gets an opportunity to mate. If she's not, she simply rejects him and moves on. Which means every performance is essentially an audition where the audience has complete control over your future. No pressure. Next, we have the Blue-Footed Booby. And yes, that's really its name. These seabirds live around the eastern Pacific Ocean and possess one of the most unusual courtship signals in nature: bright blue feet. When a male wants to attract a female, he performs a slow, exaggerated dance. He lifts one foot, then the other, then the first one again. It's as if he's desperately trying to ensure that everyone in the room notices his feet, which sounds ridiculous until you learn what the blue color means. The intensity of the blue coloration is linked to health and condition. Brighter feet generally signal healthier birds. So the dance isn't just showing off, it's advertising biological quality. It's basically a medical report disguised as choreography. Then we arrive at one of the most extraordinary performers in the natural world, the superb bird of paradise. Found in the forests of Papua New Guinea, this bird has evolved a courtship display so strange that it almost looks computer-generated. At first, the male appears relatively normal. Then he begins transforming. He spreads specialized feathers around his body. His shape expands. His features disappear into darkness. And suddenly, he becomes a floating black oval with brilliant blue markings that resemble glowing eyes. Then he starts dancing, hopping, pivoting, moving with remarkable precision. The result looks less like a bird and more like an alien life form attempting to perform modern dance. And despite all that effort, females reject most males. Apparently, even in paradise, standards are high. But not all animals rely on dancing. Some bring gifts, or at least their version of gifts. Enter the bowerbird. Found in Australia and New Guinea, male bowerbirds take courtship in a completely different direction. Instead of building a nest, they construct a separate display structure known as a bower. Then they decorate it obsessively. They collect flowers, berries, shells, leaves, colorful stones, even human-made objects like bottle caps or bits of plastic. Everything is carefully arranged. Colors are organized, objects are repositioned, layouts are refined. Researchers have observed males continually adjusting their displays as if they're trying to perfect the presentation. The female arrives and conducts an inspection. She examines the structure, evaluates the decorations, watches a male's behavior, and then decides whether he's worth choosing. It's essentially the animal equivalent of inviting someone over and hoping they appreciate your interior design skills. Now let's talk about penguins, specifically Gentoo penguins. During courtship, males often search for smooth, attractive pebbles and present them to females. The stones help build nests, making them genuinely useful gifts. If the female accepts the offering, it can strengthen the pair bond and contribute to nest construction, which means that somewhere in Antarctica, a penguin is carrying around the carefully selected rock and hoping it changes his life. Honestly, that's kind of adorable. Some animals skip gifts and dancing altogether. Instead, they focus on becoming impossible to ignore. Frigate birds are masters of the strategy. These large tropical seabirds possess a red throat pouch that males can inflate during breeding season. And when inflated, it's enormous. The pouch swells into a bright red balloon hanging beneath the bird's head. Males gather together in groups. They perch in trees, spread their wings, tilt their heads back, inflate their pouches, and remain on display for hours. Meanwhile, females fly overhead and evaluate the candidates below. It's essentially a giant aerial talent competition, where the main requirement is looking impressive enough to stand out from the crowd. Then, of course, we have the peacock, probably the most famous show-off in animal history. That enormous train of colorful feathers isn't helping the bird fly better. It isn't helping him hide from predators. In many ways, it's a burden. The train requires energy to grow and maintain. It can make movement more difficult. And it certainly doesn't make staying unnoticed any easier. So why evolve it? Because females prefer it. The train acts as a signal. Maintaining such a costly display may communicate information about the male's health, condition, and overall quality. In other words, the peacock is carrying around one of the most extravagant advertisements ever produced by evolution. And somehow, it works. Now, here's the fascinating thing connecting all these examples. The dances, the colors, the gifts, the structures, the displays, they're all forms of communication. And while animals are capable of deception in some situations, many courtship signals are surprisingly difficult to fake. Producing vibrant colors requires resources. Performing energetic dances requires stamina. Building and maintaining elaborate structures requires time and effort. In many cases, the display itself becomes evidence of the animal's condition. The signal only works because creating it isn't easy. And that's what makes these behaviors so remarkable. Every display represents an investment. An animal spending energy, taking risks, and putting itself on display for the possibility of being chosen. When you look at it that way, animal courtship stops feeling silly. It starts feeling strangely relatable, because beneath all the feathers, dances, songs, and pebbles, the goal is familiar: to be noticed, to be chosen, to connect with another individual. And animals have been solving that challenge for hundreds of millions of years. So the next time you see a bird performing a strange dance, a fish showing off bright colors, or a spider waving its legs around like it's auditioning for a talent show, remember, you're watching one of nature's oldest stories. A creature doing its absolute best to impress someone. No words, no messages, no emojis, just effort. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more curious questions about the natural world. And next time we're asking, what would happen if humans suddenly lost the ability to see color? Trust me, you won't look at the world the same way afterward. See you then.